remember how we did a story a little while ago about how a federal judge went back on Donald Trump and told them that they couldn't actually revoke DACA. Epic, great win. I love that. Supreme Court stepped in and said that Wolf, the person who's working for Donald Trump in the DHS, wasn't formally in his place, so the order that he put through to stop DACA from working couldn't go through. So DACA is still up and running. We have to take people in now. That's amazing. But ICE, the Trump administration, and the Department of Homeland Security are not done trying to torment immigrants just yet, because they have moved on to, instead of just attacking the immigrants, attacking news outlets from trying to accurately provide insight into what's going on inside of ICE and doing investigative journalism. So BuzzFeed reports the Trump administration is trying to force BuzzFeed News to divulge its sources with a subpoena. So Immigration and Customs Enforcement investigators issued a subpoena this week demanding BuzzFeed News identify its sources, an extraordinary attempt by the government to interfere with a news outlet acting under the protections of the First Amendment, and a move that the agency former chief lambasted as embarrassing. So here's what happened, okay? And here's what the Trump administration and ICE have been doing. So news outlets talk to a lot of people. They talk to people in high positions of power who don't want to be on the record, but they're sources that are inside these departments who are privy to lots of knowledge that that your average person isn't. It's an important part of investigative journalism to protect your sources and to make sure that you have people that trust you and that you can trust to accurately give you information into many parts of government and life that are hidden away from lots of people's eyes. So ICE is really mad at this. ICE is extremely angry that BuzzFeed is talking about the horrible things that they're doing, and that people inside of ICE are working with BuzzFeed and people along those lines to make sure that the things that they're saying, the things that ICE is doing under wraps, get out. So ICE recently put through a law to say it's basically an anti-snitching rule, to be like, hey, listen, we're gonna give you a couple of brownie points, okay? We'll give you a bonus. You get a couple pats on the back from the sergeant or whatever. If you snitch on someone, if you give us a lead on someone who's giving information to like BuzzFeed or the Washington Post or the New York Times on what's going on inside of ICE, right? So with that being said, that is an incredible crackdown on the rights of lots of workers and the free flow of information to help people come to rational decisions about what the government's doing when they're acting extremely secretive. With that not working out, obviously, as well as lots of people say, the Trump administration and ICE have moved on to a more egregious front, which is issuing like a subpoena saying, hey, tell us everybody you know, give us all the names, tell us everybody that has information on where we can find undocumented immigrants, so we can round them up, put them in concentration camps, and then deport them, maybe sometimes without any trial, without their children, without telling anybody, just kick them out of the country and dump them across the border, no matter where they came from, no matter what their situation is, no matter what. So here's the last part of this this paragraph. So the Trump administration is trying to expand a program of quick deportations for undocumented immigrants who cannot prove that they have been in the country continuously for 2 years before agents pick them up. So this is a rule basically that says, hey, if you don't have all the receipts for when you stepped into the country and how long you've been here continuously, then we're just going to pick you up and dump you across the border, no matter what's going on, without a hearing, without an attorney, without due process, without any of those things. And mind you, the Trump administration has full control over what immigration judges do, what their workload is, how many there are. So what they're doing is they're cutting lots of judges' workload, backing up the system incredibly, creating a massive bottleneck. So only a few cases go through. And then once they have this massive bunch of people, they start scooping them up and then throwing them across the border as fast as possible until, they obviously get kicked out. And if they were able to continue doing this would have gotten way worse, way faster. More missing children, more dead people, more forced hysterectomies, all of these sorts of things, all these horrible actions that have been caused, all these like human rights violations that have been caused against immigrants just trying to make their way in the country would have continued and gotten worse because Trump and ICE would have had no one to listen to for another 4 years until a Democrat had the chance to get in there and hopefully turn back at least some of the things that Trump has been doing, at least when it pertains to the border. The effort was blocked by a federal judge soon after the policy was first announced in 2019, but in June, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia lifted the preliminary injunction, opening the door for ICE officers to arrest and deport undocumented immigrants without a hearing in front of an immigration judge. So yes, if you don't have picture perfect documentation of when you've been in the country, then you, without any hearing whatsoever, no due process, you're going to be completely deported from the country, no matter what. And this attack on journalism is something that it goes even further than just what they're doing to undocumented immigrants. It goes even further than that because it's just basically an attack on democracy and the free flow of information. If journalists aren't allowed to be able to talk to informants inside of these departments, then lots of the things that we know now would have been completely under wraps. The thing about forced hysterectomies came out through there. The thing about them forcing Muslim people to eat pork came out through there. The chemicals that they're using to make sure that to reportedly like delouse people to kill viruses that is causing like nosebleeds and dizziness and lung infections, all of those things. And that's just pertaining to ICE in particular, not even the DHS as a whole. Those things would have just been hidden under the surface. The 500 children that have been missing, the tens of kids who have died, the parents who are completely lost. All of these things would have been hidden under the surface without us even knowing that we don't know. If those things couldn't have happened, we need to be able to make informed decisions, and we need to be able to take a peek behind the veil of what people like this are hiding. And it's not just going to stop, right? It's not just going to stop because the fundamental problem, you're right, abolish ICE, smoke pop. Biden isn't going to do that. Biden cares too much about maximizing human suffering as long as it's politically viable to do things like abolish ICE. So that's still our job, activist job, to make sure that that's a massive idea in the forefront of people's minds, that this human rights abuses along the border, the concentration camps along the border will get closed down. That's still our job. They're not going to help us in that fight. They're actually going to actively work against us. But one thing that will happen is that this law in particular will be taken aback. We'll be able to do things. News organizations will be able to do at least some things, even though the Obama-Biden administration was horrible on journalistic standards. I think we all remember Edward Snowden. But this is a horrible violation of, I think, any first world nation would call. If you saw this happening in like Nicaragua or something, some like Latin American country, we'd all be, everyone would call it, oh, look at that failed state. Isn't that so, aren't you guys so happy that we live here? It happens here. The only thing is, all it gets here is a little footnote in the news organization that was the one that was attacked over this. Instead of being rolled constantly online and being brought up on how failed the country is. Instead, it's just another, what is this, the fourth? When was this? And instead of it being this massive story of a failed state, it's just another story people forget about 8 p.m. on a Friday afternoon.